Okay, let's try to unpack this. We are about to dive into what is, I think, one of the most explosive collections of documents released in recent memory.
For sure.
We're talking about files that promised, and really they delivered, revelations of global corruption, sexual exploitation, and maybe the clearest example we have of just systemic failure at the very highest levels.
We are talking about the Jeffrey Epstein files. And when we say that, it's so much more than one man. It's thousands of pages of court documents, flight logs, unsealed witness testimony,
All evidence.
all of it. And the real story here isn't just about Epstein's crimes, which were horrific. It's about the vast network and the institutions, law enforcement, finance, you name it, that actively protected him for decades.
And that institutional breakdown is exactly what we're focused on today. That's our mission. We're going to trace Epstein's, frankly, bizarre rise to power. We'll analyze the legal tricks and the political failures that let him escape justice again and again.
And then we'll get into the names.
Oh, yes. The shocking names and details that came out when Congress finally forced these documents into the light. This is a story about how, wealth and connections can literally bend the law right up until the public says, enough.
So where do we start? His rise seems almost impossible on paper.
It really does. If you just look at his biography, it makes no sense. He was born in Brooklyn, 1953, clearly brilliant, a math prodigy, skipped grades.
Right.
But here's the first weird thing. He never actually graduated from NYU, so you have this guy with no degree, and he just vaults into the highest levels of finance almost overnight. How?
Well, that missing degree is actually the key, I think. His real launch pad wasn't a university. It was the Dalton School.
The elite private school in Manhattan.
Exactly. He starts teaching math and physics there in 1974. And Dalton gave him something NYU couldn't. Direct, personal access to the families of billionaires. Their children were his students. It was a social strategy, not a career move.
So he used that proximity to pivot.
Straight into finance. First Bear Stearns, where he becomes a partner incredibly quickly. And then he starts his own firm. And the rumor was he only took clients with a net worth over $1 billion.
So he built this tiny, impenetrable circle around
A
himself.
circle of immense wealth and, more importantly, of protection. And that network let him buy things like the $77 million Manhattan townhouse. And, of course, Little St. James.
Pedophile Island, as the locals called it. He bought that back in 1998.
And this is where the system gets its first real chance to stop him. It's 2005. A police complaint comes in from Florida.
And it spirals. By 2006, the Palm Beach police have identified, 35 victims? The FBI even launches its own investigation, Operation Leap Year. The evidence was just overwhelming.
It was a slam dunk case.
Yeah.
And yet, we get the 2008 plea bargain.
The infamous sweetheart deal.
It's more than that.
Yeah.
It's the defining moment of institutional failure in this whole saga. It was brokered by the U.S. attorney at the time, Alexander Acosta.
And despite dozens of victims, mountains of proof, Acosta signs a secret non-prosecution agreement, an NPA.
And Epstein pleads guilty to just 2 minor state charges. He gets, just under 13 months?
But even that number is misleading, isn't it? I mean, the conditions were outrageous. It was like a luxury jail stay.
It wasn't even a jail stay. He had work release. He was allowed to leave for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, to go to his office.
So he basically just had to sleep at the facility. How does a sex offender with dozens of child victims get a deal like that?
That's the institutional compromise. The deal, the MPA, was kept secret from the victims, which is a massive violation of the Crime Victims' Rights Act. That's a crime in itself.
And it gets worse.
It gets so much worse. Functionally, the MPA immunized all of his potential co-conspirators. It wasn't a deal for Epstein. It was a shield for his entire network.
And Acosta, the man who engineered this, he later becomes labor secretary under President Trump.
A disturbing symbol, right? The system rewarding the very people who protect the powerful. That deal didn't just let him walk. It buried the whole operation.
So that 2008 deal, it just sets the stage for the next act. The legal fight was over for a while, but the public fight was just getting started.
Exactly. And the pressure started building mainly from investigative journalists.
Yeah.
Julie K. Brown at the Miami Herald, her work was just relentless.
She exposed the corruption in that 2008 deal and that public anger. It finally forced a new federal investigation. So Epstein gets arrested again, July 2019, sex trafficking charges.
And this time, it feels different. He's facing potentially 45 years. It looked like accountability was finally coming.
And then it just stops. The trial never happens.
August 10th, 2019. He's found dead in his cell. The official cause is suicide, but the circumstances, they immediately spark suspicion all over the world.
You had independent forensic experts, one hired by his own brother, saying the injuries, specifically broken bones in his neck, were actually more consistent with homicidal strangulation than hanging.
And the institutional, let's call it negligence,
Yeah.
around his death was just staggering. It feels almost like an active effort to leave him unsupervised.
Right. His cellmate gets transferred out the day before. The two guards who were supposed to be watching him.
They fell asleep. And then they falsified the logs to cover it up.
And the surveillance footage, the cameras.
The footage had timecode jumps,
Yeah.
gaps, minutes of crucial video just gone. The opportunity for him to face a jury was just erased.
And the fight didn't end with his death. It just shifted. It became a battle over the documents, the files.
The huge political flashpoint, especially going into the 2024 election.
You had Donald Trump on the campaign trail promising total transparency. I'll release all the Epstein files, he said. But then he wins, his administration takes over in January 2025, and the tone just completely changes.
It was a total reversal. By July 2025, his Department of Justice officially closes the investigation. They claim there's no client list, no co-conspirators to charge, and they stick to the suicide ruling.
The message was clear. This is over. Nothing more to see here.
But this is where the system's checks and balances, for once, actually worked.
Yeah, the public will really came into play. Despite resistance from the White House and even the House Speaker trying to stall the bill, the pressure from the media and Democrats in Congress just became too much.
And in November 2025, they pass a law. It mandates the release of the Epstein files. It literally forced the DOJ's hand.
And suddenly, thousands of new documents start to drop, exposing this dark network that it seems like both parties had tried very hard to keep hidden.
And once those files dropped, everyone's focus went to one thing: the names.
The high-profile names. And we have to be clear here. Being in these documents doesn't automatically mean you're guilty of a crime.
Not at all. But it does show the sheer scale of the network he built.
So let's start with the big political figures. Donald Trump's name appeared over 600 times. The flight law is confirmed he flew on Epstein's jet, the Lolita Express, at least 8 times in the 90s.
Right. And while he has always denied knowing about any criminal activity, there were allegations detailed in FBI records from victims claiming he was a witness during some of these horrible incidents. Now, again, those are allegations that he's denied and have never led to charges.
And there was that bizarre handwritten letter, supposedly from Epstein, that claimed Trump also loves young girls like us. The DOJ called it a fake pretty quickly, but it just added to the toxicity.
Then you have former President Bill Clinton. He flew on the jet 26 times. 26.
An incredible number. And there were allegations he visited the private island. One victim claimed Epstein told her that Clinton likes them young.
Again, like Trump, Clinton has always vehemently denied any involvement in anything illegal.
And then there's the international angle with Prince Andrew. Named over and over in the documents, his association eventually forced him to give up his royal titles, especially after Virginia Woolf's memoir came out in 2025.
But the list goes so far beyond politicians. That's what's so telling. He was targeting influence in every sphere: science, entertainment, tech.
We saw names like Stephen Hawking, connected to a visit to the island, Bill Gates, who kept meeting with Epstein after his 2008 conviction.
That's a crucial detail. This wasn't old history.
Then you have Kevin Spacey, Chris Tucker, Mick Jagger, Michael Jackson, even Diana Ross, and Google's Sergey Brin. The list itself is the evidence. It was an influence operation.
And moving from the names to the physical evidence, it really starts to feel like this was all designed for psychological control. Maybe blackmail?
I mean, that painting.
The painting of Bill Clinton in a blue dress and red heels, a direct reference to the Monica Lewinsky scandal.
Hanging right by a security monitoring station. That's not art, that's leverage on a wall.
It's a message. And then there's this obsession with the novel Lolita. Investigators found these disturbing photos of women with quotes from the book written on their skin in black ink.
Visual proof of the fixation that led him to name his jet the Lolita Express. It's just so depraved.
And in his safe, $70,000 in cash, loose diamonds, and a fake Ukrainian passport. He was ready to run.
But maybe the darkest detail of all comes from his Zorro Ranch in New Mexico, this huge 8,000-acre property.
The New York Times reported on this, claims that it had a secret underground bunker, and the alleged purpose was just beyond sinister.
It's like something out of a sci-fi movie. They reported it was for eugenics, for genetic experiments, that he wanted to seed the human race with his own DNA.
That takes it out of the realm of normal crime and into this megalomaniacal obsession with control.
And all of these details, all these names and sick artifacts, they were almost buried for good. The government's resistance to releasing them tells its own story.
And their attempts to hide the information were, well, they were almost comically inept.
Right. The DOJ releases these documents with big black redaction bars over the text, but people online figured out in minutes that if you just copied the text and pasted it somewhere else.
The black bar disappeared, and the name underneath was revealed. It was a clear but technologically clumsy attempt to protect people.
And that technical failure, it just fuels the whole bipartisan cover-up theory, doesn't it? You had the Biden administration, then the Trump administration, both fighting the full release for years.
Which leads to the obvious question. If these files were so damaging to Trump, why didn't the Democrats release them when they had the chance?
Because, as everyone started to realize, the files were damaging to everyone. The feeling was that everyone is naked in these documents. The network crossed party lines, making full disclosure a kind of mutually assured destruction for the elite.
And that brings us right back to the central theory, that Epstein was more than just a predator. He was some kind of intelligence operative.
The blackmail hypothesis.
Exactly. One theory from a former Israeli intelligence officer was that Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were running a Mossad honey trap operation, using these encounters to gather compromising material or compromat on powerful people for leverage.
We should note the specific link has been officially denied by a former Israeli prime minister.
It has. But regardless of who he was working for, the entire story is a case study in systemic failure. It wasn't just one prosecutor, Acosta. The financial system was completely complicit.
You cannot forget that. J.P. Morgan Chase paid a $75 million settlement because they knowingly enabled his sex trafficking operation for years, ignoring just countless red flags.
This wasn't a crack in the system. The system itself was the shield. Financial power provided a barrier that the institutions, the banks, the courts were willing to enforce.
The Epstein files are just this stark, painful reminder of how our democratic institutions can bend or even break completely under the weight of extreme wealth and power.
And to release these files, we have to remember, it wasn't a voluntary act of transparency from the government. It was a legal mandate, forced by Congress because of public pressure. But this process, it's still not over.
Not even close. The Department of Justice admits there's still 1 million pages that are unreleased, still under review. So, given the bipartisan push to keep this buried, the clumsy cover-ups, that absurd 2008 deal, and the deeply suspicious nature of his death, the question for you is this.
What system was he protecting?
Exactly. If the financial system failed and the justice system failed, what deeper, more coordinated network had the power to delay justice for decades and maybe to silence him forever? That's the question that isn't answered in the pages we have, and it's almost certainly hiding in the millions we don't.